Hello. Welcome to Spilling the IT. I'm Paul Burke. That's Adam Burke. We're both with Quest Technology Management, and we're talking about tech news, channel updates, and today, Microsoft Exchange hacks, which are pretty substantial. Adam, what's going on? How are you?
I'm just proactively turning off the Bluetooth on my cell phone so it doesn't ring, and pull my Bluetooth headset away from being able to talk to you live.
Just
Proactive, getting in front of things.
A couple of professionals, top level, top shelf. That's a phrase.
Dialed in.
Dialed in.
Yep.
Yep.
First of all, but to all of our long-time viewers and listeners, just want to say it was Paul's birthday this weekend. Happy birthday to Paul.
Thank you very much.
The big 14. No, sorry, 40.
Yep.
Big
Turned
40.
14 years old, Adam. It's no big 4-0. You got the 4 right. You got the 4.
Yeah.
4-0. So yeah, good weekend. Great weekend. It was really nice.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, happy birthday, Paul. Good
Thanks,
stuff.
Adam.
Good stuff.
Hey, Adam. You know who didn't have a good weekend? Microsoft. Look at that transition.
Nice segue. That
Yeah.
was good. And yeah. Actually, you know what? Their PR is doing pretty good so far. So far, they're holding up from a PR perspective. It's going okay. But yeah, there's a lot of people who, there's some trouble in the world of Microsoft and Exchange and some of the vulnerabilities. So
we're gonna dive in. We're gonna talk. I was a little premature in jumping into the topic. Adam, how was your weekend? Good weekend?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. It's plugging away. It was active. It was active from a incident standpoint. A lot of people reaching out for help. So it wasn't really much of a weekend, but we like what we do and we like to stay busy. So that's good. It's good.
So not relaxing. It wasn't relaxing, but you got a lot of work done. You helped a lot of people.
No, we got a lot of work done. It was actually funny. Around 5 o'clock on a Friday, a company apologized for they were getting a little aggressive, asking for. We do data center services too, and they're like, "Hey, we got to move in by next Friday. Sorry to be aggressive with you." And I was like, "Hey, you know what? This is actually the nicest conversation I've had today so far around urgency. A lot of other people were saying I need to talk to someone within the next 15 minutes.
Yeah.
As opposed to, we got to get a quote back by next Friday. I was like, that's not a problem. We can handle that. No problem.
Ask me for something difficult. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. But good.
Cool.
But all good. Yeah.
So, so you reached out to me today. You're like, hey, we should definitely talk about the Microsoft Exchange hack. And I think that's super smart because it's really transforming a lot of people and making a lot of people suffer right now. And some things they may not know about it. So I thought, I love the idea of sitting down and kind of talking about that with you for a little while.
Yeah, it's definitely in the news. You're hearing about it everywhere from CNBC to, President Biden and declaring a national emergency, and all sorts of issues going on with it. So definitely thought it'd be good to talk about what we know about it, and then what we're seeing clients and partners deal with out there in the market. So definitely thought it'd be good to cover.
And it looks like, from the reports and everything, this didn't happen, but it started back in January when Microsoft was notified of the 0-day threats, correct?
Yeah, so the first wave of attacks kind of came out in January. So the 0-day vulnerability was discovered, in Microsoft's in their software, and different hacker groups, different organizations targeted Exchange servers that were on premise that were vulnerable to this exploit. So kind of that was the first wave of attacks that came, and then there were some patches put out, there were some fixes published. But where it got really, where the plot got thicker and the whole hey, could be a potential, state actor type of a thing is Microsoft has this thing called the Microsoft Active Protections Program. It's called MAP, and it's a group of companies across the world that they basically, collaborate from a security partnership standpoint. Well, Microsoft, sent out an update, kind of a proof of concept to some antivirus groups and some folks that help them secure endpoints. And the proof of concept, what it really did was it kind of it kind of gave an attack map to people. It kind of showed like, hey, this is how you protect something. Well, if you're into fighting or grappling or anything else like that, like if you know, hey, this is how they're going to protect that move,
Mm-hmm.
you also know, hey, this is where they're weak, right? So this,
Mm-hmm.
so it kind of gave the bad actors an attack vector. So the second wave we started seeing, and the market started seeing around February 28th, that second wave almost matched like for like with the proof of concept that was published by Microsoft to some of their antivirus partners and folks in this map group.
Got it.
So that's where they're thinking it might be a state actor, it might be someone, China's been mentioned, things like that. But what's scary about this one, and what really is, raised our awareness at Quest about this, is it's 30,000 plus organizations that are in, that's SMB and middle market, right? So everyone heard about the FireEye hack and the SolarWinds hack, and that hit large government agencies, that hit huge corporations, it hit Microsoft, it hit FireEye, it hit all sorts of folks. The Orion issue. This one's going after the small guys. The 200 user environment, 100 user environment, those types of environments. So that's where it's going after people that maybe don't have as much security in depth of their environment. They have a firewall, they got some endpoint protection, maybe some antivirus, maybe they have SIM, maybe they have other types of security layers. Hopefully they're patching and they have a patch maintenance schedule, but it's going after people who aren't going to necessarily know they've been compromised. So it's pretty significant.
So with FireEye, it seemed like they were after data. They wanted information. They were going in there to get stuff. But it sounds like what you're talking about is it's more just somebody's trying to cause havoc, and just it doesn't seem like they're going after data per se. It sounds like they're going after smaller companies, smaller organizations, just to kind of ruin things.
Well, we don't know.
We don't know.
Well, yeah, we don't know. And what's happening is organizations and Microsoft and the security people are quick to come out and say, hey, here's the patch, patch the system, patch the vulnerability, which is great. But the people could have been there could have been bad actors in their environments for a few months now, and once the exploit is, once you're in, there could be malicious code dropped into the environment, and what we don't know what that malicious code is going to do, or when it's going to trigger kind of the next wave of attacks. So there's definitely the patch. If anybody's watching this or you're hearing us talk about this, we've Tim sent out a message today on LinkedIn to all of our followers and anybody we do business with. We had about 14 different incidents kick off from people asking us for help, on Friday and over the weekend. We've had a lot of activity on this. We're telling everybody, okay, great, here's the patch. Here's what you need to do from a patching standpoint. And then there are certain steps you need to take around evaluating if any malicious code was dropped onto the system and if it's doing anything right now. Because what we saw and what's really interesting about this middle market and small business attack is a lot of people have defenses in place to prevent things from coming into their environment, right? So you kind of got the castle walls, the moat idea, you got your firewall. Some people have, secure access on the edge. Other people have different, antivirus things built out. But in the SMB world, there's not a ton of effective monitoring or management about what's leaving the environment. Right. So what's going out? So one of the nastiest breaches we ever saw was with a mortgage group that for over 6 months had been BCCing, blind copying all their mortgage transactions overseas, and they didn't know about it for months. So this happens in the middle market. You don't necessarily, you can definitely prevent things from coming in, but sometimes a lot of people don't necessarily have that visibility of what's going out. And so what's concerning, and we're not trying to be alarmist or Chicken Little and the sky is falling, but this is a significant challenge to the mid-market, because you have to, not only do you need to maintain your patching and make sure that this vulnerability is patched, you also need to take a look at what's in your environment right now, what malicious code potentially could have been left, and you do need to at least start the dialogue about, okay, what's going to happen if something was left behind, it kicks off a communication or kicks off something else, a trigger to start exfiltrating, to start pulling data out of the environment, right? It hit Exchange, right? It hit Exchange servers. It doesn't have to go far to look for a path out.
Got it.
It has your Exchange, right? So that's one of the most vulnerable areas of communications in corporate world right now. Is your Exchange server is where you communicate, right? It's how it's, why did what's his name rob banks? Well, that's where the money was. So, why is this such a vulnerable thing? Well, they prop the door open, right? And it could be a significant risk for a lot of folks. So that's where we're trying to communicate as much as we can, as often as we can. Hey, run the patch, and then these are some steps around identifying if there's any malicious code in the environment.
So you mentioned identifying malicious code in the environment. Do we have a list we're supplying people, or like kind of a checklist or a system? Like how can we help?
Yeah, so we have a document that we're taking folks through what we've seen so far, and we call it a statement of engagement, and it lists out the different components that we're checking for, right? So it kind of identifies, hey, these are the different areas we're going to review. These are different areas we're going to isolate. You're going to do some containment, and then you're going to do what's called a compromise assessment of the environment, right? So you're going to look for the malicious code. You're going to, deploy. We want to deploy next generation antivirus onto all of your systems. You want to put it in blocking. If you do already have that, you want to make sure that that's put into blocking mode. You really got to start, peeling the onion back and seeing how far, if any of this malicious code is detected on your systems. Okay, has it have you had any logged events of data leaving, right? Are you logging? But that's a really good thing to make sure. Have your logs, enabled, and make sure that you're pulling that data and you can see those transactions, what's happened. There's a lot to do. This is a not I don't want to call it like a black swan type event, but it's an event that I think it was Warren Buffett who said that you get to see who's swimming naked when the tide goes out.
Yep.
Like it's one of those situations where, hey, the tide's receding, so get some shorts on and let's get to work here, because there could be some serious vulnerabilities that reality sparked up. People are getting caught right now, and not to be an alarmist. I don't want to be Chicken Little, but it's a national event, right? Everybody has Exchange, unless you've 100% born in the cloud, type of environment, or everything's in Google Docs or Amazon, and there's risk factors there of their own type. But everyone's got Microsoft. There's a reason Bill Gates is one of the richest dudes in the world telling us about vaccines. He's Microsoft's everywhere. So,
you mentioned the cloud. Are people kind of reassessing the cloud and thinking maybe there's more safety using the cloud? How is that kind of factoring into people's thought processes during this whole Exchange event?
It certainly could. I mean, there's still vulnerabilities, in the cloud environment and documenting what's going on there, right? So as you move Exchange and you move all your other critical applications to Microsoft 365 or to someone like Google Docs or Amazon or Workspace ONE or anything like that, you don't get to like put the risk onto them.
Got it.
Right? They're not good. They're not going to take on the risk of managing your end users or managing how you access your data.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to provide you the toolkit. They're going to provide you the beans and bullets, but they're not going to take on your battle for you. So it's still really critical to understand, okay, these are the beans and bullets that I have. How do I maneuver? How do I deal with, the threats that are coming in? Do I make sure I have, if you put all your stuff in the cloud, for example, and you have a username and password that gives you access,
mm-hmm.
you're only as safe as that username and password. Right?
I'm glad you.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned
So,
that because I've been reading a lot of things and they've been saying like, oh, this is a good example of why everybody needs to shift to the cloud because it's way safer. And I think what you're saying is very true. It's like they're not going to take on your
no.
vulnerabilities. Your vulnerabilities are your vulnerabilities.
Well, listen to who's saying that too. I mean, so who everyone's always talking their own book, right? Everyone's always talking their own. Everyone's selling a widget. So if they're cloud people, if they're consultants, if they're next generation visionaries or gurus or whatever they are, they're all talking their own book. But it doesn't matter where the data sits, doesn't matter where your users are accessing. You're still responsible for protecting your
Mm-hmm.
own enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
You can't transfer that to somebody else. You can't, right? So you can work with partners. We help secure a lot of organizations, whether it's the endpoint, whether it's helping them monitor what's going on in their environment, what's leaving their environment. We got a great new offering around data loss prevention that helps organizations like lock down what's leaving their environment. And then we just also help organizations just get the basic blocking and tackling right. We're always evangelizing patching, patch management as a service. Our cyber defense suite we put together specifically to address where we're seeing most of the people get compromised. The endpoint, your exchange and your email services, and where you go online, right? So we put together a cyber defense suite. It's pretty cool. I think it's awesome. It's one of the most, we just sold one the other day in 2 days to a user. It was about 100 users or
Mm-hmm.
100 users on his environment. It took 2 days. He was using a web filtering appliance. I think we charge $10 a user for cyber defense suite,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we were half everything we do from endpoint to email security to DNS around. We run a Cisco DNS umbrella for all their end users. It was half the cost of what he was paying just for his email protection. So it's like it's one of these
Wow.
scenarios where it's kind of it's a service that we really want to take to market and say, hey guys, there are all sorts of threats going on out there. There are all sorts of bad stuff going on. This Microsoft is a perfect example. But you got to get the endpoint secured. You got to see if there's malicious code coming in your system. You got to protect the email and the exchange information coming in and out of your system. And you got to protect where your users can go on your corporate machines, whether they're virtual or physical,
Mm-hmm.
where they can go online, right? And then we also throw in monitoring IDS and IPS alerts in the firewall.
Mm.
So we're watching your firewalls and your logged events there. And we run a vulnerability scan every month. So that's kind of a really cool bundled security service that if you get those things right, you're light years ahead of where most people are right now from an operational standpoint. Those are the basics. But again, you can't transfer responsibility. You can't. It's your organization. You gotta partner up with people who are going to help you kind of navigate through it. So
Cool. Great
yeah.
points. I think that's really helpful. I think you're really kind of laying out what people need to look at and the idea that, because I think everybody does think about the moat. Like the moat is the most important thing in a lot of people's minds. But you mentioning like what is leaving, I don't think that people don't think about that one. But what's leaving the organization is really, really important.
Yeah, they can't get out, right? So it's that defense in depth. It's the idea of not letting, not once if they do get in, how are you going to control anything from leaving the environment, right? So critical to take a look at that and make sure that that's addressed, and what your security teams or your partners are helping you deliver. So yeah.
Nice. Anything else about the Microsoft Exchange issues you want to kind of dive into and talk about?
Well, I mean, it's kind of historic. I mean, it's
I mean, there's so many
there's
different
thousands of
there's so many different layers to it and things to talk about. So it's like anything else? Well, no, we covered it all in 15 minutes. It's kind of impossible.
Yeah, we got it.
But
We're good.
we're good.
No, we covered it. We knocked it out.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna evolve. The main thing is it's gonna evolve, and you gotta. We're just trying to raise awareness of it right now. Like we're trying to make sure that anybody that does business with Quest or any of our partners, anyone that needs help, knows that one, we can help. We have an instant response team. It's available 24/7. In the event you do see malicious code taking action or doing something from a a data standpoint and trying to move things from point A to point B, we can help lock down an environment. And then we also if you don't do it with us, do it with somebody from a compromise assessment standpoint. Evaluate what you have, what's there right now. If you have an Exchange environment that could have been targeted, by this breach, this is gonna be going on for months. So
got it.
Yeah.
Great points. Really helpful. Did you want to talk more about kind of the cybersecurity in more kind of general terms, or any other topics you want to kind of dive into and discuss?
Our cyber defense suite, we're trying to always, put together building blocks that are helpful for our clients. Our cyber defense suite kind of takes, 3 of those building blocks from a services standpoint that we really think are extremely valuable, right? So there's Endpoint Protection is a standalone service that we provide, right? We use next generation, basically anomaly-based detection. It's not dependent on scripts. It's not dependent on knowing zero-day threats. It's a preventative tool that looks for anomalies in the system. So love that stuff. Endpoint Protection is kind of one of the building blocks that goes into Cyber Defense Suite. The next thing that we put into there is basically we use Cisco Umbrella from a DNS standpoint, understanding where your people can go and where they can't go on the internet. So you set policies and you say, hey, yeah, you can go to these types of sites, you can't go here, and basically managing, where people can go online, because you can go to a site, get compromised, download some code on your machine, and they're off to the races. The last piece is email security, right? So we're talking about Microsoft Exchange hack. There's a ton of people out there who the easiest way to compromise a system is by phishing, right? So hey, here's your Facebook password reset, or here's your banking information, or hey, there was one that hit a lot of our channel partners and people that we do business with. It was a great spear phishing kind of campaign for, hey, check out your monthly commissions, and it sent an Excel file that had malicious code on it that any sales rep is like, oh cool, monthly commissions, let me open that file, click, and you're done. So they're smart. So you got to use, so we bundle into the cyber defense suite email security, right? So we leverage a proof point technology, awesome stuff that really helps kind of block out any of that phishing or malicious code or things that can get sent through.
And I was also going to add that I think a lot of people, a lot of the cyber defense suite, and correct me if I'm wrong, it came out of conversations with clients and potential clients and people looking for services, and we talked to them and figured out the best things to bundle together. If you are out there and having questions, you can always just reach out to us and ask, like, is this something you can do? Is this something you can bundle in with the cyber defense suite? We're very open to talking about that. I mean, everything we do is how can we help, and that starts with talking first to potential clients.
Yeah, no. So the cyber defense suite really came out of 2 areas. One is exactly your point, Paul. We run cybersecurity workshops. So Sean Davidson and a few other folks on the team do a great job of, and I think we've had Sean on here before. They sit down with the client and go through, hey, here are the parts and pieces of your security environment. Here's what you're doing today. Here's what you could be doing. Here's what you might want help with. So that cyber defense suite really came out of that. Also, as part of our other side of our business, incident response, when we see people get in trouble and when we get more kind of called into action as opposed to proactive, we're actually getting involved in containing a breach. Those 3 areas are oftentimes where we saw people get in trouble. So that's kind of why we put that together. And then we added on what we've been doing for 20 plus years, monitoring and alerting on firewalls. Our first client back in '99, I think Tim and Mike Dillon were in a CFO's office. They had the guy had a pile of Cisco stuff in the corner, and he asked if we could help monitor and manage that back in 1999. And that started a lot of our managed services and our network monitoring service. But been doing that a long time. So we bolted that on to say, hey, this is, logging those IDS, IPS alerts, from your firewalls, critical to see that. And then just giving you a good map of your environment from a vulnerability standpoint. We do a quarterly vulnerability scan. So that's all bundled in again at that $10 per user thought, which is if you try to do that by itself, you're probably well north of $20-$25 per user type of a model if you try to parse and piece it together. So,
and again, you can always reach us, questsys.com, and also the phone number is in the description. If you have any questions, we can always help out. So,
yeah.
Adam, I know we're coming up on 30 minutes, so real quick.
Yes, sir.
Adam,
Yeah.
what are you watching? What's happening? What are you doing? What's worth people's time?
So on Netflix, I have two daughters, and they were really liking. We watched this show called Strong, which was on ABC, I think, like, I don't know, like 5 years ago. It was a Sylvester Stallone production.
Yeah.
And it partners women with these like professional trainers, and they compete against each other. And it was really cool. And we've been watching that. So my daughters, they like that. They're like, I want to be strong. And like, okay, cool. So we've been watching women work out with professional trainers and compete against each other. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am watching a series called Blown Away. Have you ever seen it? It's about people who work with blown glass and like create like beautiful sculptures out of blown glass and everything.
Oh, cool.
It's very cool. Nothing I think I could ever do. They are sweating constantly. It's amazing. They're like
not a lot of room. Not a room. Do they have like nubs, like finger, like charred, like, cause that's gotta. I mean, not a lot of room for air with blown glass. Like that's gotta.
Yeah, no. All these people have their fingers. I mean, then again, I don't know how many people submitted to be on the show. They might have just picked 10 people that still had fingers. But it's good. It's really great. People are super passionate and excited, and the work they make is amazing. So every time you watch it, you're like, yeah, passion. And you just kind of get excited about whatever your particular passion is. So it's cool. It's nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right on. Very cool.
And and there's no murder or death or anything. It's fantastic. Oh, it's a really nice, inspiring show.
That's good.
Yeah.
Right on.
So,
right on.
Cool. Well, we'll be back. We will be back next week on Monday, spilling the IT. Adam, any final thoughts, messages, words of wisdom?
Nothing right now. If you need any help, again, ir@questsys.com, or we'll put our contact information, link information below here. And if you need any help, we can certainly help.
Yeah. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to us or put it in the comments and we'll be sure to get back to you. And have a great day, Adam. And everybody watching, have a great day.
Thank you.